Hi everybody, it's Cash. Welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me today. I've got something really unusual for you and very, very exciting. Somebody wrote in to say, could you take a look at the Roanoke colony? I had never heard of the Roanoke colony. It turns out that it's a settlement that vanished. About 120 people were there for a while, and then they completely disappeared, and even now, nobody has been able to explain what happened to them. Roanoke is in Virginia, but the Roanoke colony was on Roanoke Island, which is off the coast of North Carolina. Sir Walter Raleigh, who was an explorer and a highly significant figure in English society back in the 16th century, decided to establish a settlement, the very first English settlement on the North American continent, on Roanoke Island. Initially, there were due to be around 600 colonists there. This was in 1585. The problem was that the local tribespeople didn't want them there, understandably, and were very, very hostile. Their antagonism drove the initial colonists out, I believe. But they tried again in 1587, only with around 120 people this time. It didn't mean that the tribespeople were any more friendly. There were still run-ins, but at least it was another attempt and it got established. 3 years later, some more English people swan in on a ship and find that the Roanoke colony has vanished. I mean, there are remnants there, but the people are gone. All 120 people had vanished, and it's been known as the Lost Colony because to this day nobody knows what happened to those people. There was a piece of wood or a post or a pole or something that had the word Croatoan etched into it. Croatoan was the name at the time of another island, and it was just assumed that the colonists had gone there, but nobody really knew. And somebody wrote and said, could you do that time travel thing that you do and see if you can find out what happened? Well, I take this semi-seriously. I don't know really if we can time travel, but when I have an idle moment, I find it great fun to see if we can go back through time, because our physical bodies can't do that. But as we discovered with the Nostradamus transition pictures, the way he made his predictions was by kind of astral traveling through time, because time doesn't have the kind of limitations in that world that it does in our world, in our mortal world. We are stuck where we are, but in the beyond the ethereal divide, there is no time. It just goes backwards and forwards and so on. And so I thought I would just put myself open-mindedly in the 16th century, in 1588, let's say, and Roanoke Island, and just see what happened, if anything. But the pictures that came were immediate, and I want to tell you these now. I didn't draw them all because they're extremely complicated, but they were so fascinating that I simply had to come on here and tell you what happened. Because I was, when I went into the energy, lying on the ground, and I thought that I was wearing a uniform. I could be wrong about this, but they had the clothes I was wearing had a kind of look to them that suggested formality, something like that. But I was lying covered in mud, and this mud was spattered across this rather formal-looking outfit that I had on. I didn't know why. I didn't know why I wasn't moving. I was just lying there. There was a commotion going on. There were people running by. I thought they had guns, but weren't guns invented around the 17th century? I don't know, actually, the history of guns, whether there were guns at the time. But they seemed to have long weapons anyway of some kind, and they were running across the landscape. Whether they were running to or running away, I had no idea, but certainly something was going on. There was a commotion. Over to my right, but remember I'm still lying on the ground covered in mud, over to my right was the seashore, or the banks of a river, or something that waves could lap over. And a ship. There was a ship over here. And these people who were running seemed to be running for the ship. The problem was that the ship it was a big thing as well. It wasn't a little boat, it was a big thing. It had fallen over, or it had got wedged in the sand or silt and had toppled over sideways, so it couldn't be used. And these people ran up to the waves, saw the ship, and went, oh my God, and they panicked. There was real panic in the air. At this point, I felt as though a sheet was put over me, or it came fluttering down over me. This, to my mind, was me losing consciousness, I thought. It wasn't about somebody really putting a sheet over me. I was losing consciousness, or I realized I had to move away from this situation. And I turned over onto my stomach and dragged myself over here. I dragged myself over here and realized I had a wound. I was wounded by something for whatever reason. I was wounded. And unfortunately, because I was on my side, on my stomach, dragging myself away, mud was getting in the wound. I crawled for a little while. There was a gully. I rolled down into that because there was water everywhere. And now I've got salt water from the ocean in my wound as well. So this was really painful. But I was in a gully. And it was dark there. And somebody ran by while I was lying there, because the place darkened, but they were just running. They just went past and nothing else happened. I could hear noise. I sensed that the commotion was dying down because the voices gradually, one by one, dissipated. I assume they just scattered, or they were killed. What I believe happened was that there were two ships, because I sensed that the one that was toppling over was the second ship. There was another one that wasn't there that should have been there, and the first ship had sailed to wherever, Croatoan Island maybe, and the people who were running around in front of me were the rear guard. They had allowed maybe women and children to go in the first ship, and they'd said, you go, we will hold off our attackers, presumably the local tribes people who are very, very hostile. We will hold them off, and then we will get in the second ship, and we will follow you later on. And that was the plan, only the ship fell over, or got wedged, or something. It was just at a very strange angle and couldn't be used, and it was too big to simply push out into the waves. Maybe the tide had gone out. Something like that, but it was beached like a whale and couldn't be moved. And now they panicked. And so some ran off, I sensed, up the coast or along the riverside, if that was a river, while others just got ambushed, I suppose, and died. And I suspected that I died in that gully. I didn't follow it through. I guess I could have been rescued, but by whom? If all the colonists had gone, who was going to rescue me, frankly? And I think that I probably died in that gully. This isn't a past life experience thing, so I wasn't able to follow it through to the bitter end. But I got a sense that I died in that gully, and everybody else either escaped by running along the shore, and maybe they just hid, and maybe I was found later on. But there was a sense here of finality. And what actually happened to the Roanoke colonists was that half of them, the women, the children, went in the first ship with a crew, probably, And the rear guard, the ones who were supposed to just stall the situation and allow them to get away, they got stuck and they were killed, more than likely. But isn't that utterly fascinating? It was so immediate. The set of pictures that came in, so immediate, and it was so cohesive, the whole thing. And it felt real. It felt like, yeah, I know that ship had just sailed. Yeah, I know this one was damaged or had fallen over or something like that. Yeah, I know these people are fleeing and being chased and desperate and panicky and realize they're not going to escape. It was so utterly vivid. And I tend to believe that what I experienced was actually what happened in the year 1587, 1588. And then in 1590, when more British people arrived, of course, the camp, the colony had been evacuated. The people had gone. That's what I got. And I thought that was one of the most fascinating sets of pictures that I had ever come across in the whole time I've been doing this. All right. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you very soon. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.